Hey everyone, this is Christopher Luxon, the former CEO of Air New Zealand.
This is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
This is Tracy Ibarra. I'm in Executive Solutions at Dell Technologies.
This is Travis Chappell, founder of Build Your Network. If you are wanting to learn how to embrace change,
To navigate through disruption as a leader,
Then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast.
The Leadership is Changing podcast.
the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend,
my very good friend, Denis Giannoutzos.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutzos.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey, listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world, and I want to welcome you to today's episode, which is an Ask Denis freestyle episode. I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, insights, and experiences from working with many leaders around the globe. Hey, listeners, great to have you with me here today. And I wanted to just talk to you in relation to a topic called Ask, Don't Tell. And it's really amazing how many leaders are actually out there telling people what to do rather than asking them certain questions. Now, before we get into the topic, just want to remind you, and if you haven't already checked out the Facebook group or the LinkedIn page, please go ahead and check out those different platforms. Love to see you join those different tribes, communities, where we share things in relation to leadership is changing. Well, this week I've got working with a new coaching client, and they turned around and said to me how much they're getting from the podcast. They've been following me for quite a long time, probably almost a year, and how they're really enjoying the information, the interviews, the learning, and the insights, but also the length of the podcast and how they're nice and short and sharp in the way of the Ask Denis, 15 to 20 minutes, and the interviews, 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes in some of them, but they're fairly quite condensed and short, which is really good. So I love getting feedback from people. And listeners, I'm going to encourage you, if you haven't already done it, if you're on Apple Podcasts, would love you to go and put a review, in other words, type 1, and a rating with the stars, the 5 stars. If you can do that, that will be really great because it's going to really help the visibility of the podcast around the globe. So if you can do that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. All right, let's get into this topic today. Ask, don't tell. I'm repeatedly talking to leaders and hearing about what's going on for them, and that they're actually finding several things for themselves and for their teams. And what they're finding out is this, is that they're having to be everything to everybody. They're having to give the answers, the solutions to people. They're having to be there and do the work sometimes themselves. Then there's a group of leaders who go, you know what, Denis, it's quite difficult. Well, it's just easier for me to go out and do it myself, get done quicker. And I know that's true, and it probably would get done quicker. But you know what? You're only one person. As your business and organization grows and gets more and more busier, you'll need more people on your team. But as you do that, are you really working with people for them to be the best that they can be? And so what can you do to help asking them questions to help them get to solutions? Now, what do I mean by this? Well, for a lot of people, they feel like they should just give the person the fish, give them the answer, the solution, here it is. But then what do they actually learn from that? Next time they go to do the same kind of task or action, and if they haven't learned from before, then they're going to probably come and ask you for the solution again. Now, here's a caveat. I'm not talking about life-threatening situations, or if you've got a customer where they need something done real quickly, then this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about whereby in most day-to-day operations of an organization, their leadership, the way they run, the culture, comes down to one thing whereby we should be asking, not telling. Now, I've seen a lot of leaders whereby they actually try and tell the person the solution. And that's all good. But then what are people learning from that? It's not really a long-term solution. That's very much a Band-Aid solution. We've got the answer. Bang, let's go. It's done. Have you ever heard the saying, the best thing since sliced bread? Now, what do they mean by that? That's right. We used to have loaves of bread whereby you used to have to cut off the slices yourself. I remember I had slices that were very thin or weren't very, very straight. They were all going curving. I remember slices were very thick. Couldn't get them into the toaster because I didn't cut them very well. And many, many years ago, somebody came out with an invention to actually slice the bread so they were perfectly sliced, different sizes, depending on what you needed. That is a saying called the best thing since sliced bread. Now, when I ask leaders, what does that mean, that saying? They go, I'm not sure. For some, they sort of get it. What it means to me is this, that when a leader says something, the team are probably going to go, they're the leader. That's what they would say. But if we ask people questions and they come up with the idea, then it's the best thing since sliced bread. They're going to own it. They'll probably take more accountability for it because it's their idea. It's a bit like those of you who've got kiddies, young kids, right? And the kids are out in sports. Your kid is the best player on the field. Your kid is the best kid in the swimming pool. And it's the best thing since sliced bread, right? Same thing. When it's your idea, when it's your thing, it's the best thing. Now, leaders, just be a little bit smart here. What can I do? Now, I would like you listeners to think about a leader that may have led you, or you may have reported into, or you may have seen through another organization. You may have seen them run your country. I don't know. The question is, have you ever seen somebody who asks you questions to help you get there? Most of us would have a leader like that and we go, what a great leader, very encouraging, developing us, but it actually will help us. Now, the thing here is that this is what I call leader as coach, and it does take a little bit of practice to get it done, but it comes down to the quality questions you ask. Questions you ask and giving them the space to think and answer the questions. Give them the space. Even if it feels awkward, give them the space to be able to think. Get them to work through it. And when you do that with people, it's amazing to see the insights that they get. But I tell you what, when they get that insight, wow, it is massive. It's almost like a clunk for them. It's that insight, that aha moment. And when they do it, they will remember that for a long, long time. They'll also remember the way that you treat them, the way that you've actually taken time to help develop them and ask them. And so, listeners, I'm going to encourage you to ask, don't tell. Ask people and get them to where they need to go to. This can apply to not just people who report into you, people part of your organization, it could be with your peers, even with your boss, your family, and so forth. There's many scenarios that you can use a coaching kind of approach to have a kind of coaching conversation. Now, I wouldn't sit there going, hey, I'm going to sit here now and coach you. You're probably going to get a little bit of pushback on that. It's actually just having a coaching conversation by asking and not telling. If you are needing help around this space, around the coaching space and how to coach as a leader, hey, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have a chat with you. I've got some good questions for you. Hey, if there's anything else I can do to help you and your organization go forward, please feel free to reach out to me. I've got some programs, but I've also got some coaching to do. Love to help you and have a conversation about what you need. Hey, listeners, if you haven't already checked out the Facebook group and the LinkedIn page, go ahead and check that out because we'd love to see you there. And you know what? What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Hey, look out for the episodes as they're being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating. Feel free to share them with your friends, your family, your network. And if there's any feedback you'd like to give me about the show or a question for the Ask Denis episode, then send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Listeners, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.